Today is Tuesday, April 26th. We'll tell you what top U.S. officials say is their endgame in Ukraine and the controversial issue coming up in the Supreme Court today. Also, it's official. Twitter has accepted an offer from the world's richest man, what Elon Musk could be planning for the social network. Plus, a first-of-its-kind COVID treatment for babies, a high-profile, high-risk stunt that's now under investigation, and how top comedians came together to honor a late-night legend. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in about 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Lacey Evans, filling in for Erica Mandy today. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Top American leaders say they have a clear goal with the war overseas: to weaken Russia and strengthen Ukraine. The U.S. Secretary of State and Defense Secretary spoke about the state of the war after visiting Ukraine earlier in the week. They said what they really want is to keep Russia from trying to invade any other country in the future. And Defense Secretary Austin said it's a war Ukraine can win, as long as it has the right equipment. Of course, that's where the U.S. and other allies come in, since they have sent billions in military aid since Russia first invaded. Ukraine's president is asking for even more. But top Russian officials are calling on the U.S. to stop. In fact, Russian troops have been attacking Ukrainian railway hubs to try to stop the flow of weapons into the country. Separately, President Biden named his pick for ambassador to Ukraine. He nominated Bridget Brink, who is now the ambassador to Slovakia. She'll still have to be confirmed by the Senate before representing the U.S. in Ukraine. But both Democrats and Republicans say they don't expect there to be any problems. Meanwhile, other diplomats are going back to Ukraine this week. Reports say that will help American and Ukrainian officials coordinate aid and other efforts. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear about a controversial immigration policy today. We're talking about what's commonly known as the Remain in Mexico policy. It basically says migrants who apply for asylum need to wait in Mexico instead of the U.S. while American authorities evaluate their cases. Supporters say it helped alleviate some of the congestion in the southern U.S. and the burden on American taxpayers. But the Biden administration has been trying to end it, arguing it's not humane since it forces vulnerable migrants to stay in especially violent border cities. This has been argued in lower courts for a while, and the latest decision meant the Biden administration has had to enforce it. Now, the Supreme Court will decide if the White House can end the policy once and for all or not. The High Court is expected to issue a decision by June. By the way, the future of another immigration policy is being debated in court. More than 20 states sued the Biden administration over its plan to end Title 42. That's the one that let American border officials turn away most undocumented adults without giving them a legal hearing because of COVID-19. And the plan was for that policy to end next month, even though critics said it would make the U.S.-Mexico border overwhelmed. Well, this week, a federal judge in Louisiana ruled in order of the states who sued and issued a temporary restraining order. But it's not clear if that will really stop the administration from lifting the rule next month or if it just keeps officials from winding it down before then. So far, no comment from the Biden administration. Stay tuned. Former President Trump is facing new legal trouble. A judge in New York found him in contempt of court because he hasn't turned over documents in a civil fraud investigation. And until he does, the judge says Trump will be fined $10,000 a day. Trump's legal team is going to fight that, though. This all stems from an investigation out of the New York Attorney General's office. It's looking into whether Trump and his company exaggerated the value of his properties to trick lenders into giving him the best loans. But the former president says he never did anything illegal. And he says the whole investigation is politically motivated. His lawyers also say they've given the state attorney general the only records they were able to find. Now, legal experts say if they can show that they did a thorough search for the rest of the documents, the judge might waive the fees. To be continued. More than 2 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, and there's finally an approved treatment option available for young kids. The FDA approved the remdesivir antiviral drug for children who are 1 month old or older. Before now, it was only approved for people 12 and up. But the latest trials involving young kids in the hospital showed remdesivir lowered the death risk from COVID-19, and most of the side effects are relatively mild, like nausea. The thing is, though, not all young kids who test positive will be able to get the treatment. To be eligible, children will have to be hospitalized or be at high risk of getting a severe case. And they need to weigh at least 7 pounds. Still, the FDA says this approval is a big deal, since kids younger than 5 still can't get vaccinated, and they're more likely to get sick from newer versions of COVID-19. That said, young children still aren't as likely as adults to get a severe case. More news is coming up, but first, here's your main host, Erica Mandy, with a quick word from our sponsor.
If you've been listening to the show for a while, you know I love my Rothy's shoes. They make the most comfortable, stylish, and durable shoes, along with other daily essentials. But especially this month, when we celebrated Earth Day, I want to emphasize the action that Rothy's takes to use sustainable practices and make a difference. Rothy's believes even the biggest challenges can be tackled one step at a time. So here are just a few examples. All of Rothy's products are made from recycled plastic. Rothy's knits products to shape, meaning the construction results in 30% less material waste than the traditional cut and sew methods. And by making every single shoe and bag fully machine washable, they last longer, which is great for our wallet and the whole world. Yep, you can feel good in your Rothy's shoes because, well, I've walked around a lot in mine and they're super comfortable, but also because by buying Rothy's, you helped keep ocean-bound plastic out of the water. When you're wearing Rothy's, your footprint feels lighter than ever. Get $20 off your first purchase today at rothys.com/newsworthy. That's ROTHYS, rothys.com/newsworthy.
It took a few weeks of drama, but now Twitter has officially accepted Elon Musk's offer. That means they have agreed that Tesla and SpaceX CEO can buy the social media company too in a $44 billion deal. And with that, Twitter will become a privately held company. This is actually the biggest deal to take a company private in at least 2 decades. Right away, there are questions about what Musk will do with the platform. The billionaire business owner has said many times he wants to transform Twitter by promoting more free speech and giving users more control over what they see. Also, Musk has mentioned he wants an edit button for tweets, the ability to write longer tweets, and he wants to get automated spam accounts out of there, so every user on Twitter is a real human. But it's still not clear how hands-on Musk really plans to be at Twitter, and regulators still need to sign off on the agreement. That said, they are expected to, making the deal final within the next few months. Facebook's owner Meta is moving into the real world. Sort of. The tech giant is opening its very first brick-and-mortar retail store, but the whole idea is to sell people on the metaverse. You know, that virtual environment for people to work, socialize, and play. The store will have demo areas where people can try gadgets like Meta's Oculus virtual reality headsets, and of course, the apps and games that run on them. Meta says the goal is really to demystify the metaverse a little bit and give people a glimpse into the future. The store will open in 2 weeks on Meta's campus in the California Bay Area. A live-streamed mid-air stunt is now under federal investigation because it didn't go exactly as planned. Event organizers said things should have worked like this. 2 pilots were going to go up in separate planes, then exit their cockpits and skydive into each other's planes, leaving each aircraft without a pilot for a little bit. The whole thing was called Plane Swap, sponsored by Red Bull, and live-streamed on Hulu. But when it actually happened, one of the pilots didn't make it into the other plane, and that plane ended up crashing in the Arizona desert. Thankfully, both the pilots are okay since they had parachutes, but now the FAA says it never should have happened in the first place. Apparently, the federal agency said the stunt could happen only if there was an extra pilot aboard each plane, so they were never left empty. So far, Red Bull, Hulu, and the pilots aren't saying anything about this investigation, and it's not clear what kind of punishment they could face. The first fully private crew to ever visit the International Space Station is now back on solid ground. They returned to Earth on SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft in what's being described as a picture-perfect landing. Remember, this trip was led by a commercial aerospace company called Axiom Space. It sent a retired NASA astronaut to the ISS with 3 paying customers. They were supposed to spend 8 days in orbit, but because of weather, the trip got extended to be nearly twice that long. In that time, they did science experiments and research, floated weightlessly, and took in the one-of-a-kind views of Earth from up above. Now, Axiom plans to fly even more passengers to the ISS. It has a deal with SpaceX to go on at least 3 more private missions. This week, one of comedy's top honors went to a man best known for political humor. Former Daily Show host Jon Stewart won this year's Mark Twain Prize, and he is the first person to be honored since comedian Dave Chappelle in 2019. Chappelle was one of the many comedians on hand to pay tribute to Stewart at the Kennedy Center this week. Some of the others included Steve Carell, John Oliver, Pete Davidson, Jimmy Kimmel, and more. They spoke about Stewart's comedic chops, as well as his activism on behalf of veterans and 9/11 emergency workers. Then, Stewart took the stage to talk about the current state of his profession, saying, quote, "Comedy survives every moment." The whole ceremony will air on PBS stations this June. That's it for the main news today, but now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, here's Erica again with more about our sponsor.
Have you ever had something that actually gets better as you use it? Think good jeans that stretch to perfectly fit your body over time. Would you ever think sheets could be on that list? Well, Boll & Branch sheets are not just buttery, breathable, and comfortable. They also get softer with every wash. I've already noticed the difference. And as someone who works kind of odd hours and is a fairly new parent, I value my sleep when I can get it. I want those hours to be high quality, and Boll & Branch sheets help make that possible. There's nothing quite like getting into a freshly made bed to go to sleep after a long day. And it's that much better when you love your sheets like I do, thanks to Boll & Branch. Miss the Boll & Branch April sale? The Newsworthy listeners get exclusive access to a post-sale 20% site-wide discount through the end of April with the promo code Newsworthy at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND, branch.com with the promo code Newsworthy for 20% off through the end of April.
Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, pop star Taylor Swift grew up on what type of farm? You can answer the question and play along on Instagram. Find and follow us at NewsworthyPod. Just look for the trivia quiz in our Instagram stories today. As for last week's trivia question, which one of Shakespeare's plays is the longest? The answer is Hamlet. The tragedy was first printed in 1603 with nearly 30,000 words, and it's still one of the most performed plays today. In case you're not familiar, Hamlet is about a young prince who was supposed to become king when his father died, but instead, the throne was taken by Hamlet's uncle. So what happens from that point on is a story of revenge. Actors say the title role of Hamlet is one of the hardest parts to perform, but many well-known actors have taken on the challenge, like Mel Gibson, Christopher Walken, Ian McKellen, Daniel Day-Lewis, Benedict Cumberbatch, and many, many more. The play has also given us a lot of famous phrases, now used in everyday language. For example, the primrose path and the lady doth protest too much. All right, thank you for listening today, and as part of your routine, Erica will be back with another news roundup tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.